The internet, that great fountain of information, has been awash for years with stories and rumours, many based on historical evidence that the Nazis made it into space, perhaps even building a base on the dark side of the moon. Fictional accounts from the fevered imaginations of fiction writers who penned sci-fi novels on this subject decades before the invention of the internet have provided a fertile base for such beliefs, and even Hollywood has jumped on the Nazis in space trope with films like Iron Sky. To many, such stories seem perfectly plausible, considering how technologically advanced the Germans became in World War II. Well, in fact, the internet rumours and pulp fiction novels are based, often unwittingly, on a surprising truth. Nazi Germany was the first nation to enter space. Forget all about moon bases, flying saucers, and Nazi astronauts. The real truth of how Nazi Germany began the space race is astounding, well documented, and surprising. Depending on how you define where space begins, determines the year that Nazi Germany first entered space. According to the internationally recognized Kármán line, space begins at 100 kilometers or 62 miles above sea level. However, NASA defines the beginning of space as 50 miles above sea level. So according to the NASA definition, the first man-made object to enter space did so on the 3rd of October 1942, when a German V-2 rocket reached an altitude of between 85 and 90 kilometers above the Earth during a test firing from Peenemünde in Germany. At this point, General Walter Dornberger, the director of the Vengeance weapons program, is said to have stated, "Today, the space age is born." Each V-2 rocket was 14 meters or 45 feet 11 inches in length and weighed 12,500 kilos or 27,600 pounds. With 25 tons of thrust from an alcohol and liquid oxygen-fueled engine, the V-2 could deliver a nearly 1-ton warhead at supersonic speeds of up to 314 kilometers or 195 miles away. If you believe that space actually starts at 100 kilometers or 62 miles, the so-called Kármán line, then the first man-made object to enter it was, you've guessed it, a German V-2 missile. In June 1944, during vertical testing, a V-2 reached a recorded altitude of 189 kilometers or 117 miles above the Earth. The question is, did any Nazis actually make it into orbit? The inventor of the V-2, Wernher von Braun, wanted to modify a V-2 to carry a German into space. A V-2 couldn't achieve orbit, but was technically capable of putting a man into space on a suborbital trajectory. In the early 1940s, von Braun's team studied evolving the V-2 into a manual rocket plane. This version, called the A9, had wings to extend its range from 250 to 550 kilometers. But to be truly a spacecraft, a second stage had to be planned, the A9-A10 manned ICBM. However, in 1943, the Nazis prohibited all further research into manned spaceflight in favor of the war production of V-2 rocket bombs. But by autumn 1944, Allied advances had pushed the V-2 batteries beyond the range of southeast England, their primary target. The A9 project was hastily revived. Von Braun created the A4B, the prototype A9. 5 were built by the 24th of October 1944. The first was launched on the 27th of December, but crashed very close to its launch pad. The second was launched on the 24th of January 1945. It reached 80 kilometers above the surface of the Earth, pitched over into a stable glide at 1,200 meters per second, and then one wing broke off. The program was ended thereafter. But that's not the end of the space firsts for the Nazis. After Germany surrendered, the Americans, British, and Soviets raced to snatch rockets and scientists. The very first film of the Earth taken from space was made by the United States using a captured German V-2 missile. On the 24th of October 1946, rocket number 13 blasted off from White Sands, New Mexico, reaching 104.6 kilometers altitude, and took a precious few seconds of black and white footage showing the curvature of the Earth and the blackness of space beyond. The V2 program was an ultimately evil creation that killed 12,000 slave workers to build 6,000 rockets. 2,000 of those rockets hit targets in Britain and Europe and killed over 5,500 people. The Nazis sank an astounding $2 billion into the V2 program, the same amount as the Allies spent on the development of the atomic bomb in the Manhattan Project. Militarily, the V2 was a failure and actually hastened Germany's defeat as resources were squandered on its development. But there is no denying the scientific achievement of getting a man-made object into space. From this dark genesis would emerge the peaceful exploration of space today. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and share and help support my channel at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.